If the reward for conformity is that everybody likes you, except yourself, then perhaps George Bernard Shaw said it best. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Personal identity theory is the philosophical confrontation with the ultimate questions of our own existence, such as, who are we? As musicians, we're on a relentless pursuit to define what features or traits characterize our creative output. But musical existence in 2023 is becoming increasingly digital. And digital, by its very definition, can be copied. It's repeatable. So, how? In this 3-part Y440 Season 2 finale, we spend some time with longtime friend and Yamaha artist Mark McLean to try to put some shape on musical identity and how to preserve it in the new world. Who are we? At Yamaha Canada Music, we're Mark McLean fans, and our identity is a commitment to making waves. Welcome to Yamaha 440 Sessions.
Oh yeah, well today we were doing a sample session, so we were sampling my touch and my sound on playing on the Yamaha Live Custom Hybrid kit, and the plan is to we're going to take those samples and we are going to insert them into the new Yamaha DTX 10, and I will then do a performance with my band, and it's going to be great because I'm going to have all my sounds with me. I think 2000, since 2000. So this is going on 23 years now as a Yamaha artist, which is great. And yeah, that's surreal actually, because I look back at all the posters. I used to have I had Dave Weckl poster, and I was nuts for Chick Corea and the Electric Bands. He's playing Yamaha drums, and then Steve Gadd, of course, playing Yamaha drums. The first kit I got was the Maple Customs. I still have these. It's my favorite bebop kit. It's an 18-inch bass drum, standard snare 14, 12-inch rack, 14-inch floor tom, and it's a natural finish. And they get darker the older they get. When they first came out of the box, they were pink, and now they're like this golden. They're nicer than my floors. I'll just put it that way. So yeah, it's been a great experience. And then from there, I moved to the oak drums. It's punchy. I was playing in a band called The Color of Soul, and I know that band. You know that band? Okay. And
I used to play that.
And yeah, they have. I just love. I think the bass drum was actually the first thing that really attracted me to it. It was just super punchy and a lot of body. For me, it's just how it makes you feel like I love the maple and everything else, but then when you hit a certain thing, you're like, oh wow, that sounds like me. I didn't even know I had a sound, and then you're like, oh, that sounds like me. So that was like the switch, and the oak kit, which I still have. The finish was gorgeous, kind of like this one behind me here. I saw it was like a matte black at the time, and I was like, I gotta play those, And you want them to sound good because they look so good. So imagine I was really happy when they sounded great too, right? I switch up because my stuff is backlined a lot. Usually on my rider for the jazz stuff, it is maple. it is maple, what they bring in, maple custom absolute, which is, it's just a winner. For some of the pop gigs, I ask for oak because it just cuts. It just cuts, and I don't think I'm a super loud drummer, so I like to be able to sort of play like me and still cut through the band and not kill anybody. They might be a little brighter. I love them. I love them. It's just kind of hard to go wrong with oak. Man, they just cut through. Like, I'm not sure if they cut through more than the other ones or not. They're great.
That floor tom too.
The floor tom, that was unbelievable. Hitting that floor tom was just like, we both know it was like boom, boom. Oh my gosh, So that's great, Yeah, I think the ones I have are probably a lot more of a tighter sound, and these are more open, I would say. If I had to really, really think about it, they're definitely more open. Sing a lot more. It's still a bit of a mystery to me, but I actually, I'm thinking back into '96. I was actually still at University of Toronto, and we went down to Atlanta with the University of Toronto Big Band, and we had a great set, and people were like, wow, that sound is so different. And I don't know what it is. I think it's just like, maybe there's a subculture in the States, definitely a subculture in New York that's just, I don't know, a little bit more raw. Maybe, I'm guessing, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I just sort of been like, okay, we have a sound, let's move on. I like New Orleans drummers. Fascinate me. Like, drummers from the South, because they just have a whole other thing. Like, first of all, the second line thing is out of control. Like, if you go to New Orleans and hear how the way they play the bass drum, especially. And that's one thing I feel like going to school up here, like, it felt like my approach and everyone's approach was kind of top down, cymbals. It's all about the cymbals keeping time. But then down there, it's about the foot. It's about the foot. And even like the great jazz drummers are playing off the foot. Like, I talked to Eric Harland, and he's like, yeah, I do everything from my feet upward. And I never thought about it that way. So that's been interesting to hear how they approach the music and just realizing how important the bass drum is. And that helped me playing pop music too, because I just didn't really understand it. Man, like, they're listening for your foot. And then when I'm playing jazz, I'm like, okay, they're gonna really focus on the hi-hat or the ride cymbal, And sometimes if I'm playing a pop gig, like I was playing with George Michael for a couple of years, and George was really all about my hi-hat. So it's great to learn all these different things and what people are listening for and the different sounds. And there is a different sound. Like, there's a New York sound, there's a LA sound, there's a New Orleans sound, so.
And a Mark McLean sound.
Apparently there's a Mark McLean sound, yeah. So just gotta, my sound is just, taking influences from all those, just take what I like and then go from there. New York, just attracted by the jazz scene first and foremost. A lot of my favorite drummers, Brian Blade, Gregory Hutchinson, Bill Stewart, Kenny Washington, they were all there, and I just needed to be where they were. So I finished up my undergraduate at University of Toronto and received a Canada Council grant to study with Kenny Washington for 1 year. Brian Blade allowed me to shadow him for a while, which was great. And he actually was the one who introduced me to Kenny Washington for more of a formal education. But I also studied with Billy Kilson a little bit, took a lesson with Bernard Purdy, which was a lot of fun, and Louis Nash, that's another one. One particular takeaway, wow. They all were about sound, like having a good sound on the drums, having good technique. And from having a foundation of good technique, you can sort of create your sound. I think Kenny Washington probably said it best. Like, if you put the same piece of sheet music in front of myself and put it in front of Gregory Hutchinson and in front of Louis Nash, like, the foundation the blueprint of our drumming will be the same. But then, as you learn these skills and you sort of become the interior decorator of these things. So you'll have the blueprint, the foundation, and then you sort of put your thing on it, which is like the designs or the paint or whatever. That was the main takeaway for me with these guys. Oh man, yes, the aluminum drum. It's so funny growing up just playing wood all the time. You see an aluminum drum and you think it's going to be kind of harsh and kind of cold. This thing is warm. Like if you told me it was like a wood, I would believe you if there was a blindfold test. But yeah, it's just it doesn't ring too much. It rings just enough for me. Like especially if I'm playing like funk or something like that. It's like crack. You hear it and it kind of goes away. Love it. A nice surprise. That was, a huge surprise today, that drum. My number one drum is my Maple Custom drum, the one that came with the bebop kit. I used it all over the world, with George and Michael. I did the record as well, and that's on that record. And everyone was just raving about that, the kit in general. Like we did some stuff for BBC, and they're like, you're not gonna believe this. They're not using any EQ on your drums. And I was like, great. So that's the greatest thing about traveling the way I do, because sometimes it's not like a huge touring party and you can't get, I can't travel with the stuff I want to. So I know when I get an oak custom or a maple custom or a birch, I know what I'm getting and I know how it's gonna sound and I know how to work with it. And there's usually very little work to be done. So that's very comforting to me. But, well, the hardware is the best, that's for sure. It's not even, I don't think anyone's gonna debate that. Like, they have best hardware. That new Crosstown series is killer too. It's rare that I have to, carry drums to a gig, but it's great when I can just lift the hardware bag with a couple fingers, actually. Look, the finish on this thing it's unbelievable. Like, look at that. Like, it's incredible. So they look beautiful. They travel well. They sound great. Like that, for me, that's the stuff that matters. But yeah, I love, this finish is really nice though. Like I wasn't expecting that, so.
The final stage of the sampling process is to mix our recording in Steinberg Nuendo using all of our favorite third-party plugins. As the samples will be used in a band context, it is important to approach the mix as we would in a traditional ensemble recording. Once we're happy with the mix and it feels complete, we export our multitrack to stereo files. We finish the process in Steinberg Wavelab by isolating each of Mark's hits and trimming the beginning of each strike as close to the attack transient as possible. And using a fade out on each sound's decay. Each file is then saved under a unique name using the DTX Pro X module's naming convention. Each DTX pad can trigger up to 40 samples, arranged in 4 banks of 10, labeled A, B, C, and D, and numbered from 01 up to 10, softest to loudest. The reason the DTX-10 is such an expressive instrument for the player is because it switches between these 40 samples based on how hard the pads are struck. Finally, our edited and organized samples can be loaded into the DTX Pro X module via USB stick, and the fun can begin.
Gladys Knight, Dionne Warwick, Billy Joel, the whole Diana Krall, you know, Diana from up here. And so I worked with Wynton Marsalis. That was very early on in my days in New York. Jamie Cullum, who's also a Yamaha artist, so that I had a great time working with him. Peter Sincotti, that was like a big break for me, moving to New York, getting that gig. That was about two and a half years of straight traveling on the road. Same can be said for Andy Bay, who Sister Salome is you know, made a home up here, and I did that for 8 years. That was a huge part of my learning. And I'm gonna miss some names, but those are some big ones for me.
Cool.
Joe Sample, there we go. I forgot Joe. That was a big learning experience.
Joe's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that was funny because the album I was touring was with Randy Crawford, and the rhythm section was Steve Gadd and Christian McBride. So we'd show up in Europe, and on the posters, sometimes they'd say Steve Gadd on drums, and I'm like, oh man, this is not the way I pictured this going. And people walk out, that's not Steve Gadd. No, but it worked out fine. They just want a good show that grooves, and that's what we did. No, well, the George Michael thing was a whole, like, I've never seen like crazy fans like that before. Good crazy, not, but I'm just like, wow, they're going nuts for him. Like, when you see his car drive off and you see people running after it, like, that's pretty funny. We had a good night. We did some stuff at Royal Albert Hall. We did 4 nights there, and I look out in the front row. There's Elton John watching the show, and then there's Justin Timberlake in the audience, Naomi Campbell in the audience. He threw a really fun party one night after Royal Albert Hall, and I was talking to this woman, like, just chatting, and fine, left. And then as I was leaving the venue, I saw the paparazzi, like, all these flashes going off, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, so-and-so's here. I was like, oh, really? Where? And they're like, you were just talking to her for 20 minutes. So that, that was like, oh man. But it's probably best I didn't know who I was talking to. I've had good times and tour with really good people who make me laugh. So that's always fun. When you look out into an audience of 20,000 people, and there's one of your musical heroes from your younger days on stage, yeah, you get that a little bit. But I try to treat every gig the same. Like what's my job? My job is to like groove and lock in and give whoever's on stage what they need. So I just try to have the same work ethic every time, whether I'm playing in a little bar or it's on stage. So I don't really get freaked out or nervous because it's the approach is the same for me all the time. I think the snare drum alone is about 120 hits. Took some time, but it was totally worth it. And once they're in, and it's done. And it got faster as I went along. So it was really good. So great to have the drums that I sampled in the machine.